and then the understanding it requires and so on. I think it's nearly a lakh.
How many would you guess there are in this country, Tom?
Gee, I don't know. Less than 100, I should say. Would you? What would you say?
Yes.
Oh, I think Hard has had more than 100
Well,
when it comes to meetings.
Well, I mean, all depends on what you do.
I mean that.
I mean, well, yes, but I was talking about people who were really,
Yes.
sincere. Well, no, who were interested, more or less exclusively in interview yoga.
Whole time. It won't be more than 20 or 25. 25, no? 30.
Oh, here we have that many, I think, really. I don't know how sincere you but practiced in the yoga, actually, but depends on what level you're making this
Yes, yes.
How does a person get rid of desires?
No, the question can be rather pertinent. Does he want to get rid of desires?
Pardon?
Does he want to get rid of desires?
Yes.
That's the point. You see, if there is no desire, then it's no use prescribing anything, because if the man doesn't want to give desires, he can't give it up. So he must want to give it up, then that will itself is the first condition, that he must have will to give up desires. Then there are methods by which he can, if a desire has become persistent and a part of nature, it can become a part of nature. So to say, one doesn't even separate himself and note it as a desire. There are cases in which man is not able to know that a certain thing is a desire till when something in him wakes up and sees that it is a desire. People take so many things for granted, you see, for their inner life. So if a desire has become a part of nature, then the first thing that might happen is that when the will to reject desire has come, it must come as a result of either perception that one is a slave to desire, want of mastery, or that one feels that, desire is something which makes him, smaller in his inner constitution, really speaking, makes him shrink to a smaller size. And when one has noticed that desire is something that he wants to curb, then 2 or 3 methods he can use. One is the method in which here you can use the work of the intellect, mind. What he can do is to separate the mind from the desire and watch the course of desire as it expresses itself in his behavior, thought, life, and allow it to work out and see to the end of it with a detached mind. When the mind is detached, mind will be able to see impersonally, the futility of desire. The futility of it, that is to say, it will be able to, rationalize the whole process in the way that you say that I want this thing. Then you argue to yourself, supposing you have the thing. Then I want this thing, supposing you have that thing. You see, you go allow the mind vital to go along, because desire is generally 99.9 the action of vital being of man. The mind can be very easily detached from it. The intellect, I mean the impersonal, intellect which can stand apart. So if the mind puts its light upon this working of vital being, then the vital being will not feel the sanction that it generally has in running with the desire and running with the mind in the desire, you see. If the mind was part of it, then the desire feels a far greater justification in its operation or in its carrying out, so to say, the impulse in the human being. But if the mind holds back, then the desire loses 50-60% of its support and tends to become weak. That is one. Another is to note with the mind the impermanent nature of whatever desire can bring. That the thing that is attained is necessitates a repetition of the same, because desire has never the tendency to get satisfied. Desire is like, as we put it, I think I told that story. Did I tell you the story of Yayati? That king who borrowed the youth of his son. I told the story, I think, no?
Right.
Did I tell you the story of that? Yes, he borrowed the youth of his son, and then the psychologist had told him that it is by enjoyment that you can get rid of desires and impulses. You see, what you call the repression should not be there, but bringing it to the surface and allowing it to have free vent. Well, he did it for 1,000 years, they say in the epic, in the Purana, in the legend. And then he came to the conclusion that desire cannot be satisfied by fulfilling them. They always increase like the butter or the fat that is put into the fire. It goes on burning more and more. And another process is to have prakamya, as it is called in Indian language. Prakamya is the direct relation of the intellect and the sense. This detachment is one. You detach yourself and allow the desire to run the full course and see the futility of it. Or you see the futility of it by putting the intellect directly in connection with the sensation. That is to say, not allow the vital being to intervene between the intellect and the desire satisfaction. You take the case of sweet meat. Say sweet. A man is attracted by sweet. Put a rough idea of a desire or an impulse. Now, well, if he puts the intellect in communication with what taste means, then the light of mind will fall on the sensation directly. And when the light of the mind falls on the sensation directly, well, the intervening desire soul is not allowed to act. That has no time to act because mind directly takes up the decision of the sensation, whether it is something to which mind can be attached. Taste of sweetness is nothing else but a vibration that takes place on the tongue. And when the mind is put in communication, then the attachment to the taste, to the sweetness, will be immediately felt as simply vibration. When the mind is in contact, if you allow the sensation to be interpreted by the vital being, then naturally the judgment of the vital being will have a chance to come in. The vital being will come in and say, this is very good and I want it. Is it not? But if my vital being is not allowed and pure intellect is allowed to intervene, then mind will say, yes, I am addicted or attached to sweet taste. Yes, but what is sweet taste? Let me see. Then you try to communicate the sweet taste to the mind. Then mind will say, yes, sweet taste means within a short span of human tongue, you have a vibration which you translate as sweetness. There is no sweetness really speaking, it's a vibration. Isn't it? An object coming in contact with the tongue creates a certain vibration. It is that which is called sweetness. Which is interpreted as sweetness. So in that way, the intervention of pure intellect and sensation creates a sort of a direct judgment by the detached mind, which takes away the attachment or the attraction of the sensation or the impulse that is trying to possess man. More than that, the idea is to find out who it is that desires. Because the moment you allow your identification with the self of desire, well, you will be pulled by it. So you have to find out who it is that desires in you. You have to put the question to yourself, who wants this? And probably you will find that there is some part which wants and another part which can be detached. Not only mind, but another personality of your own self, another level of your being. It is that which creates the equation of which we spoke yesterday, that whether man is a mental, vital or a physical being or something more than that. Well, when desire comes, one can always put this question to himself, who desires? What it is in me that desires this thing? Who is going to be satisfied? Who creates the desire? Then when this question is put, naturally, there will be a search as to the origin of this desire. and then probably its place will be located somewhere in the vital being, and then the being that has no desire will say, well, somebody in my house has a desire, but I have no desire. That is, the greater part of the negation will begin there. You see, the question of throwing out desire will begin from somebody who hasn't got any desire, in whom the desire doesn't arise. You see, who is it that wants this desire? What in me wants? Which part? Who is going to be satisfied? When that is put, then you clearly know it's a vital being. And when the vital being is known as the originator and one who is insisting on the satisfaction of desire, well, parts which are independent of the vital, the intellectual being, the psychic being, or the emotional being, even the pure emotional being, can always stand apart. And if they can stand apart, the greater part of the support is withdrawn from desire. Secondly, people think that desire belongs to themselves. This is also a very half-true conception. It's not true. Desire do not belong to anyone. Desires are like, like the wind that is blowing. And when a desire enters consciousness, he thinks it is mine. But if he just, draws back, he will say that perhaps 20,000 or 1 million people have got the same desire. In desire, one is not individual at all. One is very general. In the impulse of desire, one is not at all special. One thinks when it comes to oneself that this is my desire. But if he just withdraws and says, then how many thousands of people would have same or similar desire practically? So that it is an operation of a universal force, really speaking. And when we submit to some force which is outside ourselves. Really, desire is not from the within the man's being. It guides a man, it molds a man very often. That is true, because the universal current of energies coming into the human psychology, makes the man either to accept or to reject, and by that process, one is made to grow into something. So that the acceptance or rejection has a meaning and a significance, but really the origination is not within oneself, but from the cosmic movement of vital being it comes. Desire enters into the man from outside generally, not from inside. They come from outside, they are accepted and they seek satisfaction. So to know that the desires are more or less extraneous to one's inmost being would be more effective way of getting rid of them. And then you can call in always the help of the divine. If you find an impulse or a desire too strong because of the past association or past submission to it or allowance to it, it has gathered sufficient force and you find yourself unable to resist, well, the best is to call in the help of the divine. Your own psychic being, appealing to the divine to help you to throw out the desire. If it is sincere, there will be tremendous help.
Does Aurobindo say that that's the most effective way? You're open.
Yes, opening to the divine is very effective way, one of the most effective ways. There must be before that to succeed a partial separation, because otherwise desires are not seen in their proper dimensions by men. Men always think that they are getting rid of something very good. When they have to throw out a desire, they think it is as if they are amputating a part of themselves, which is not at all true. Because of attachment, identification. So one has to remove that identification, you see, from within himself. And so he feels that, oh, I am throwing away some very important part of myself. It is when one has seen that desire is not the whole of oneself and not the whole of one's true being, well, then the throwing out becomes easier and also receiving the divine help becomes easier, because otherwise one doesn't appeal to the divine with sincerity. It is when conviction comes that this must go, then the appeal also has the highest effectivity.
So it won't be actually a sacrifice.
No, not at all. Desire cannot be sacrificed. You cannot sacrifice desire knowing them as desires. One cannot offer desire to the divine, I mean.
What do you mean by that?
There are people who think that they offer up the desire to the divine. Now, if they know
and have the divine exceed their desire, that means?
No, probably they think that, you see, desires are things that can be offered to the divine. But if you know them as desire, then you have to reject them. You see?
Well, go back to what you said a few minutes ago. If you have an opening to divine,
Oh, if you have an opening, yes.
and if you offer up this desire to divine,
Yes, for dealing with them.
for dealing with it.
Yes, not as if they can belong to the divine.
No, no.
No, that's it. Yes, to deal with them. That
You can't have it and all.
supposing a man, for instance, commit theft. Let us take a very bad case so as to illustrate correctly. Now he says that I offer my thieving tendency to God. Knowing that such thieving tendency he cannot offer to God because he must reject it. He must say, I don't want it. Then divine will deal with it. But if he says, I offer this to God, but it's not worth offering because it is yourself made to perceive by the divine in you that this is wrong. You understand the point? Yes. Yes, it cannot be offered. It's not right offering at all. It's not right offer. I offer my stealing to God, but God has stolen. Not go ahead, but you cannot offer because divine has made you feel that this is not right. Well, then it is your duty to reject and seek the help of the divine in rejecting it. You can appeal to the divine that I am weak and I can't reject it myself. Help me to reject it out. That is true. The divine could help to reject, but you cannot say I offer it to the divine when you know that it is not good. The perception that it is not good is a decision from the divine within your own self.
Well, in one, absence of desire, or basic absence of desires in general, is one of the indications of equality, isn't it?
Desire for the fruit or desire for getting anything, yes. If the temperament means mind and emotional being and vital being remain equal, means unmoved in success and failure, in good condition and bad condition, that's a sign that desire is weak or desire has been eliminated. That is a test.
Desire as a general weakness, not a
Yes,
specific
yes,
desire, but
yes.
desire in
Yes,
general.
yes.
Well, then attachment would be something completely different. Would you call attachment?
Yes, attachment is a beginning of desire. You can say it. You see, attachment comes out of you can say an attraction. Some attraction in some part, attachment to house or attachment to property, attachment to person, attachment to some idea even. Attachment is from mind to the most physical being.
Well, is attachment to a house, is it unhealthy?
Well, depends. If you feel attached, then you have to get out of it. Of attachment, I mean, not out of the house. But all attachment has to be given up. Because by attachment you invite bondage.
But if you don't care whether you stay in the house or whether you leave the house.
No, you must feel the house not yours.
Yeah.
The house is not yours. The house must belong to the divine.
Yeah.
But you don't have to leave the house to prove that.
Well, if you find that you have a real attachment and you want to test, it might be good to try to give it up. To know that you have no real attachment. It may not be permanent, but just to see that you don't really feel it yours, you may have to do it for some time to just to test and find that you have no attachment. These are inner things which have to be tested. You see, you can't take them for granted. When you really go in for growth, one has to do that. Otherwise, you take it for granted, then one is not sure whether the thing is right. When you really give it up and then you watch your reactions inside, then you see how much attachment or detachment is there or not. And when really it is given up, then you know that now it is gone.
You still own it.
Huh?
But you still own the place, the house.
You can come back to the house. You can come back to the house. There is nothing wrong in coming back to the house after knowing whether you have really attachment or detachment.
You mean you work that in the mind?
Yes, in the being, not only in the mind, in the vital being. Your own vital being will react. There will be a churning.
But it's not a necessity that you give up the house completely to somebody else.
Well, you need not give it up like in that way if you don't want to.
I think it's been a transfer of title.
Yeah.
Actually, just transfer the title or give it to somebody that wants it, put it in his name and go away. No. No. That is what you're saying.
No, that would be renunciation. It's not renunciation that we are advocating. We are not advocating renunciation. We are advocating detachment, which is quite different thing from, I mean, outer renunciation or what you call giving up of objects. It is not giving up. It is freeing yourself from attachment.
In India, who has gone around trying to get people to give up their land to give more to the poor. You know, Bharve. Yes, that's,
Oh, yes.
but is this the way he has done this? I mean, has to give.
Yes, he has himself given up everything. He doesn't own anything. It is true. He has no property.
Well, then he's transferred title. Is this fair or
He has nothing to transfer title. He is like me. I have no title to transfer. I wish I had some title, but I had none. They are free from that bother, I mean.
Well,
But is this what he's trying to get the other people to do?
Yes, yes. He has done it himself, and so what he says carries weight with them, naturally, because he has himself acted accordingly. And that's why it carries great weight with the people, though they are not able to follow it up. And whether one should follow or not, that's another matter. But he has done it himself, there is no doubt.
They don't have to give up all their property either, Marie. They don't have to give up all their I mean, not half, but they don't necessarily give up all.
fourth chapter of the Mother,
Huh?
the fourth chapter of the Mother, where they talk about wealth.
Yes, yes, yes.
That as long as you're a true custodian of the mother and the wealth doesn't affect you, you can have it.
Yes,
You prepare
yes.
any time you give it up.
Give it up. That is to say, you must test it like that. If circumstances change, you are not affected inside. We live in a house of a millionaire today. Tomorrow we go into house of a clerk who is hardly getting 100 rupees. And
In other words,
well, it's all right. There is no change in the inner attitude. It's quite nice. What is wrong there in a poor man's house or to rich in a very rich man's house? It's all right. Or in a very, luxurious way to live for some time and then suddenly find some change and you live most ordinarily or just like a hard-working laborer. It's all right. There is fourth chapter in the book called The Mother.
I'll get it for you.
Yes.
Refers only to property. You see, Mother's fourth chapter in the book of the Mother, small book by Sri Aurobindo. There is one chapter on property, on money, wealth, power of wealth, yes.
And it says that wealth shouldn't be necessarily all given up.
No, wealth is
Dedicated to the divine.
divine, that's all, yes. Attachment has to be given up. Money is the visible sign of a universal force. And this force in its manifestation on earth works on the vital and physical planes and is indispensable to the fullness of the outer life. Money has nothing much to do with the mind, but with the vital and the physical being of man. In its origin and its true action, it belongs to the divine. Power of money, not the coin, but power behind. But like other powers of the divine, it is delegated here and in the ignorance of the lower nature can be usurped for the uses of the ego or held by the asuric influences and perverted to their purpose, to the purpose of the titanic nature in man, you see. The asuric means titan, the hostile nature, you see. So it can be used for satisfying ego or it can be used for satisfying the hostile influence working in mankind. This is indeed one of the three forces: power, wealth, sex. These are the three obstacles in the vital being of man. No, impulse to get power, wealth, to get money, or sex, that have the strongest attraction for the human ego. And the asura means the hostile being or the titan, and for the ego and the asura. and are most generally misheld and misused by those who retain them. Those who have great amount of money generally mishandle and retain them in the wrong way. The seekers or keepers of wealth are more often possessed rather than its possessors. Few escape entirely a certain distorting influence stamped on it by the long seizure and perversion by the Asura. Asura means the Titan, you see. For this reason, most spiritual disciplines insist on a complete self-control, detachment, and renunciation of all bondage to wealth and of all personal and egoistic desire for its possession. Some even put a ban on money and riches and proclaim poverty and bareness of life as the only spiritual condition. This is another extreme, but some people do it simply to safeguard. But this is an error. It leaves the power in the hands of the hostile forces. Money is entirely then dedicated to the hostile forces, it remains. To reconquer it for the divine to whom it belongs and use it divinely for the divine life is the supramental way for the disciple, for the sadhak. You must neither turn away with ascetic shrinking from money, power, and means it gives and the object it brings, nor cherish a rajasic attachment to them, or a spirit of enslaving self-indulgence in their gratification. Must not submit to self-indulgence because there is money, spend 10 where you can spend 1. You see? Regard wealth simply as a power to be won back for the mother and placed at her service. All wealth belongs to the divine, and those who hold it are trustees, not possessors. It is with them today, tomorrow it may be elsewhere. All depends on the way they discharge their trust while it is with them. In what spirit, with what consciousness in their use of it, to what purpose. In your personal use of money, look on all you have or you get or bring as the mother's. Make no demand but accept what you receive from her and use it for the purposes for which it is given to you. Be entirely selfless, entirely scrupulous, exact, careful, in detail, a good trustee. Always consider that it is her possessions and not your own that you are handling. On the other hand, what you receive for her, lay religiously before her. Turn nothing to your own or anybody else's purpose. Do not look up to men because of their riches, or allow yourself to be impressed by the show and the power or influence. When you ask for the mother, you must feel that it is she who is demanding through you a very little of what belongs to her, and the man from whom you ask will be judged by his response. If you are free from money taint, but without any ascetic withdrawal, then you will have a greater power to command the money for the divine work. Equality of mind, absence of demand, and full dedication of all you possess and receive, and all your power of acquisition to the divine Shakti and her work are the signs of this freedom. Any perturbation of mind with regard to money and its use, any claim, any grudging is a sure index of some imperfection or bondage. The ideal sadhak means ideal, seeker. In this kind is one who, if required to live poorly, can so live, and no sense of want will affect him or interfere with the full inner play of the divine consciousness. And if he is required to live richly, can so live, and never for a moment fall into the desire or attachment to his wealth or to the things that he uses or the servitude to self-indulgence or a weak bondage to the habits that the possession of riches creates. The divine will is all for him and the divine Ananda. In the supramental creation, money force has to be restored to the divine power and used for a true and beautiful and harmonious equipment and ordering of a new, divinized, vital, and physical existence in whatever way the Divine Mother herself decides in her creative vision. But first it must be conquered back for her, and those will be strongest for the conquest who are, in this part of their nature, strong and large and free from ego, and surrendered without any claim or without withholding or hesitation, pure and powerful channels for the supreme fusions. And that gives you some central idea of the attitude towards the power of wealth or money.
But he says reclaim this for the mother, just to their pride.
Well, you can say Supreme Divine Mother. If you are in contact with the mother at ashram, certainly it can refer to her also. Certainly. Why not? It refers to the mother if you are in contact, but it refers to the Supreme Mother also, who is present everywhere, and you can offer your will to her and create a condition in which her will be carried out in your life.
Are we through with the house now?
Yeah?
We're through with the house.
Yes?
Well, I want to know, the probabilities, a general question. How are we, well, first of all, you do explain symbols in connection with the psychic self. Now, in meditation or in life, any time, you may receive impressions in the form of symbols. I suppose it depends individually on your degree of awareness to interpret these symbols.
Not only that, you see, symbols generally come from the atmosphere very often. So if you have a background of a certain religion, the symbol can take the form of that religious symbolism. If you are in contact with some other, then the same experience can take hold of other symbols. So that, but the symbol is indicative of a spiritual state, a spiritual experience.
Now, are symbols universal? That is, are they in the cosmic consciousness?
No, the working of the consciousness in the cosmic consciousness. Symbols happen to come to the individual when the truth or the consciousness passes through his atmosphere. You see, symbols are not coming as symbols. The truth is coming through the symbols. You see, and when it passes through the atmosphere of the individual, it takes the form of the symbol according to his receptivity, his past background, and the atmosphere that surrounds him. That's all.
Now, how do you connect symbols with the psychological belief that they are coming to the rays?
Well, because many people who belong to that culture or that, the values, well, have common experiences very often. You take the case for somebody who has been brought up in an atmosphere in which Indian background is there, then he might see the lotus or the sun or, the different Indian, symbols. The sun is a symbol of knowledge. Lotus is a symbol of opening of consciousness, for instance, or the swastik as a symbol of something, or dawn as a symbol of beginning of spiritual consciousness. You see that if you sit down for meditation, you see the sunrise, morning, in your inner vision. Not actually, you will be meditating at night, but you might see the dawn in your inner consciousness. Rosy clouds and golden light and so on. Well, that is only an indication of the waking of consciousness to the spiritual life. That's all.
Yes, so that's universal.
It may be universal, or it may take some other form in some other. I am only illustrating that symbols, formulate themselves according to the state of the disciple who is meditating or who is who is going through a religious discipline or spiritual discipline.
Yes, I think it has a great deal behind it, you know, it's very interesting. Because after all, I suppose the divine consciousness is impressing these symbols on us to show us things.
Yes, yes, and it does according to the man's own atmosphere. My point is that symbols are not put as symbols.
No.
A truth is given to him, and the truth passing through, or a pressure of consciousness passing to the individual, assumes the form of a symbol to him.
Yes.
And symbol is a significance for him only,
Well,
for his own growth.
Every word's a symbol.
yes, I know words.
That's every word is a symbol.
Yes, in one sense.
It often uses
Yes, images. Well, man like Jung has tried to study the symbols of the primitive people and tried to show that consciousness, when it's not intellectual, well, works in images and sees images and so on. A very rough way of putting this thing. It's not a correct study, but anyhow, you will see there a lot of symbols studied, and Dr. Kumaraswamy, A.K. Kumaraswamy, has written Comparative Myths of Religions. Very fine book and a very profound study also. There it shows that the same experience translated itself into Scandinavia in one way, while in the Sahara Desert in another way, in top of Himalaya or in the Tibetans in a third way, and in India in the fourth way, like that. It shows. And there is some similarity somehow, somewhere, you find. Yes, that you can say this was the same thing as what happened here to this man in this eye. Many, what you call the folk stories or folk legends, owe their origin to the perception of the symbols by the people who did not have the difficulty of physical mind which man has today. So they were more near the psychic nature and were able to see the symbols much clearly and concretely than men are able to see now. Because now immediately man wants to doubt. He doesn't doubt a television, which is itself, yes, which is itself a projection of something unreal. It doesn't happen there. It is happening somewhere else. That is exactly what happens when you see a symbol. Only it happens in your inner consciousness. You see, television is unreal. There is nothing happening there before you.
No.
That's all. It is a symbol of what is happening somewhere else. Well, in the same way, what is happening on some plane of consciousness is projected in you like that. And then you see the symbol. That's all. What is wrong there?
That's what I was getting at. That's what I
So the perception of the symbol by the early people was a sign that their mind was not sophisticated and that their physical mind was not too active and doubting. Therefore, they were able to get near the psychic being and see the truth of the psychic being acting in them as symbols.
Now, that's why Christ taught in symbols. Christ never left us any creed at all. He never said, you should believe this. He said, just believe in me. And he left us a few very basic symbols. They're so humble that I think that I'm amazed that when I go back to read the New Testament now, I didn't understand that New Testament. Though I've been reading it all my life, and I don't know. I mean, the meaning just gets more profound each time you read it. And then he left no creed or doctrine. He didn't appeal to the intellect at all. I don't think.
He wasn't intellectual.
He just put you these great symbols, and that's exactly as you say. I think they draw us like that to this habit reading.
Yes, it is a spiritual experience of which they speak.
The need was not there.
No, I don't think, I think it's great out whether they could read or write.
The need wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, I think he did that on purpose, though, don't you think? He did that on
I don't think there was any purpose. What happened was the working of a consciousness and between himself and God, so to say.
Yes.
You see, these great persons, it is not what mind thinks that matters, but what happens between the projection, individual and the divine. That's all.
I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
The same thing with Sri Aurobindo also. He was asked by Dilip so many times, many questions. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Oh, but so and so did not believe. Krishna did not do this. So and so. Sri Aurobindo said, look, it is not a question of what I think. It's a question of what I am commanded to do, not what I have got to do. It's not a question, it is between myself and the divine. So I can't do anything and can't explain it to you.
I think one of the most wonderful statements of Sri Aurobindo was, I don't think anymore, I see.
Yes.
I don't think I see.
Or would that be considered, that shouldn't be considered in a mediumship, should it?
Huh?
That shouldn't be considered, what you explain about Sri Aurobindo shouldn't be considered as a mediumship. What is it then?
No, it's a direct experience. He knows that he has got to do it. The work is given to him and it is identification with the divine that is work. And he is not no longer working on a mental basis. That's what he wanted to insist. That I don't think and then decide and act and logicize, so to say, the conclusion. But I have an experience which compels me to do things which are required by the experience itself. I am guided by a presence, so to say. That was patent to anybody who knew Sri Aurobindo. This was because he didn't know Sri Aurobindo, so he was putting it ignorantly.
Purani, is there evidence in India, someone said the other night, that Christ at some time studied, is there any evidence?
Well, there are some scholars who say that. I don't know what is their ground of proof. There are some people who try. There is one French writer, I think, Louis Jacoliot. You see, and The Bible in India. That's the title of the book, I think. Louis Jacoliot, he's a Frenchman, I think he was. And he has tried to show that, Christ derived everything from India and so on. There is another scholar also who said that Christ paid a visit to north of Kashmir, and at that time there was a Buddhistic monastery there from which he derived his learning and experience, and went back to Palestine, and he began to preach afterwards. These two I know, rest I don't know because I didn't study this. This doesn't interest me very much. See, my own conception is very simple. The past is already with us. Past is not to be, I can't go back, I can't think of going back to the past. So my conception is all the past people have done is now with us, with the present and within our own self. Now if somebody comes with all that experience of the past and projects that experience to the future, then it is that we are interested in the present and the future. Past is there with us. You see, if past had saved, we would not have this problem. If the past requirement given to the world by great lights had been faithfully carried out by humanity, we wouldn't have any problem left, I suppose. If kingdom of heaven had already come on earth, then we wouldn't be asking for it now. So, you see, the aspiration is there. I mean, the aspiration was there and it is there still. So, it is somebody now is showing how to carry out that program which was aspired after, which was seen, which was understood, and which was organized at that time, and whatever was possible was done also in that direction, and what was done is with us. What was done is not gone. Nothing can be destroyed. Nothing that has once happened or once come to existence can be thrown out of existence. It is like matter, indestructible, you see. So matter cannot be destroyed, nor can spirituality be destroyed. So whatever contribution the past has given is with us. Attainment, understanding, growth, values, many things are there with us which perhaps were not in the past. Now, standing on the present, we try to see what is the total, integral, synthetic view of man, individually, collectively, and what is his fulfillment. We try to understand it. And when we say, yes, this is understandable, then we go forward. And we say we are pulling the whole of the past forward, that's all.
Then it's not important to know about the past. It's not important to know about the past.
Yes, except to know that we are standing on the past. We are standing on it and we have all the past that was there with us. If you want to be particularly conversant with the past, then you have to read everything. And it is so big a literature, world has been, every day so many books are being printed even on one subject, that for a man to decide to read everything on one subject, even I think is practically to make the impossible, attempt at the impossible. I mean, take chemistry only, take any other ordinary subject. To keep yourself up to date in chemistry today, I don't think you can do it. One man cannot do it.
Even a branch account.
Well, you see, it is so many branches. And each branch there is so much being done that you can't keep abreast. So unless you decide to be specialist, then generally, you study the authors in their original. When you want to, cut short your labor, what you do is to read in the original Bible or one or two, chief things, and then you know the central truths. Gautam Buddha's writing, Sutra and Abhidhamma, and one or two, and you understand that this was the stand, and this is the contribution, and this is the great advantage and service which they have rendered to the human progress. You get that. Afterwards, you come and see how now in present life, what attitude to take. And then you find that somebody who gives you a rationale, gives you also experience, gives you the philosophy, gives you the path, and gives you the rationale of the solution for individual and collective life, well, then you say that is right, and then you go ahead. That's all. You say, now we go ahead. Because divine is always present. That is what I told these people at Phoenix when they were saying, abide with me. I said, well, he is ready to abide. Are you ready to put up with the abiding? Be ready to be put up with the abiding. It's all right. If he comes, it will be words one will say, please wait for some time, not yet.
But Shri, in the human cycle, I'm sure quite evident in that Sri Aurobindo met by history, by that state we do advance. History isn't just a series of events. It's a series of inward states of consciousness and collective consciousness also.
Yes.
In which man evolves to a higher inner state. And on each premises, he gains a little ground.
Yeah, that's it.
Towards a greater universality and realization of the divine.
Yeah.
Although we don't have the divine written in our history books.
Yes, that's true. That is because histories are written by people who are extrovert and want to read economics or events or try to relate something which they think is important. Really, it's the growth of man and his consciousness that is important.
Yes, but I even think that they want to convey that to us. I think any great historian wants.
Now they have begun to understand interpretation and significance of history. Man like Toynbee wants to say something that there is trans-rational experience or presence is the aim of human history. Trans-rational, presence. It means he is afraid of calling God. You see, you can call it God straight away. But no, trans-rational presence. Yes, quite intelligent, intellectual.
Of course, there is a kind of a paradox in the Egyptians, the Eurasian vanishing, a wonderful civilization.
Yes.
The Chinese civilization.
Yes.
Still has its ups and downs and ups and downs.
Yeah.
A marvelous civilization.
Yes,
ancient and modern.
Yes.
Purani, in a way, I guess I've said this before, but I think it's going to get rid of that word, God, because as a child, I think I must have gotten the impression of an old man sitting in the class with a beard.
Yes.
But every time I say God, it conveys something like that. I'd rather use any other word.
Yes, that is why I say omnipresent reality. I prefer that.
It's thrashed into me the same way.
Because there is a background prepared. That is true. I agree with you.
It's funny how long that's you know?
Yes, there is a background prepared by some religious
You know
preaching.
what Mark Twain said?
No, what you said.
Said somebody's going to come to a church several thousand years from now and wonder who this great God Bar was. Establishments all over the country.
Oh, but
God bar.
Yeah, B-A-R, you know.
Oh.
I think it was a great God, huh? That's what it is.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is anybody thinking?
Yes, that's true.
How can we test an idea that comes through the psychic, perhaps, or through the Bible, or whatever it may be, to be coming from the truth, or to be coming from the divine?
Well, it's,
How can you test?
if you say,
Say an
You see, if you want to do it like a man in the laboratory, for instance, a way in which you can try this in the laboratory, man, experimentation, then it will be very difficult because it's not liable to that experimentation. You see, this is a live process in which there is a play of consciousness, and if you cannot there isolate things as you would do in a laboratory, you see. So it is more or less a sort of a two things are there. Inner art. It's an art by which you have to know, learn to perceive. You can have an intellectual intuition about it if your mind is impersonal and detached and seeking only for the truth for its own sake. The mind can ask this question and wait without judging. A thing has come. Let mind retire into its highest status, purity, that is, seeking only for the truth and nothing else, and say, I want the truth, and I want to know what is this, and remain quiet without any reaction. Well, 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, you will get the reply, which may be very right. Or the psychic being has attacked. Without any argumentation or anything, it will simply hit upon the right thing like that and say, this is true. It will say, this is true. Put the finger on the right thing. 5 or 3 things are presented to you for judgment. And you say, which is true now? Well, you put it to the psychic being, inner being, and it automatically says, this is true. And 9 out of 10, it will be right. Because it has got a spontaneous, judgment. It doesn't require any basis for its decision. Its basis is its own self. It judges right. So there is automatic discrimination, or there is mental intuitive knowledge which comes to you. You see? And that can come only by a very impartial mind which only asks for the truth and nothing else. Then it can come. And 9 out of 10, it will be right. Because it has got a spontaneous, judgment. It doesn't require any basis for its decision. Its basis is its own self. It judges right. So there is automatic discrimination, or there is mental intuitive knowledge which comes to you. You see? And that can come only by a very impartial mind which only asks for the truth and nothing else. Then it can come. And when the mind is trying to know the truth, the vital must remain very passive. If the vital is very active, vital will try to throw its own ideas and its preferences as if they were intuitions. This deception takes place in the case of great personalities even. That the vital throws its own, preference indirectly through the channel of mind and tries to pass off its own preferences as if they were intuitions or inspirations even. Mahatma Gandhi's case was, an instance in the point. In his own life, 2 or 3 times he had this experience that what he decided was not at all the voice of the conscience, but his own vital being or his own mind preferring things. He was honest enough to say that in public.
Well, isn't that often so of any man who has a great deal of power?
So also power, and when he is not directly spiritual, you see, directly trying to sound the deepest spiritual sources. He was trying to live up to moral value, you see, where there is more chance of mistake.
When the ego enters,
Yes,
very difficult.
that is why mind. That's why mind must detach and ask only for the truth for its own sake, and be honest that whatever the truth I will take, bitter or sweet.
But that could be also attached to the ego.
No, if the thing that comes is not of the ego, means thing has to be is put before the impersonal mind, then mind has a plane where it gets into, away from the ego. Pure mind at its height has an availability of a universal impersonality, can get into an impersonal attitude. And if mind remains passive, then something true can percolate, can come in.
Well, if you reach the overmind.
Oh, over mind, then you don't have any questions.
Through the psychic rather than through the mental, how your mental operations have anything to do with it.
Yes, I know. When you go to the overmind consciousness, there is no difficulty because then you know you are in such a different consciousness that this attitude doesn't come at all. I mean, the question doesn't arise. No question.
I never can remember what you said about Bergson, the great French philosopher and tradition.
Bergson, yes, Bergson's intuition, Henri Bergson, Bergson they will say in French. His philosophy was creative intuition, is it not? Intuitio creatrice, yes. Creative intuition. Now, the intuitive being that he posited was élan vital in his language. Élan vital. I'll write it for you so that you will know the French.
No, I think
What he posited was élan vital, vital being. Vital being. And he thought that all decisions of the human being or all living, things are intuitively decided. All decisions are intuitive, not intellectual even in man. All decisions are all intuitive in man, and intuition is received by the vital being. Vital intuitions. And reason is not the instrument for deciding or taking up any decision. Reason is only an advocate. It is brought in subsequently after the choice to justify whatever you have decided to accept. You understand? That is Bergson's stand. Now that is not Sri Aurobindo's stand entirely. There is only ground of agreement that in the vital there is intuitive movement. That Sri Aurobindo also, affirms. But for Sri Aurobindo, intuition is an independent level of consciousness. Intuition is a stage of consciousness above the mind. You understand? Intuition for him, just as your mind, vital being, emotional being, so there is intuitive consciousness, quite independent of a mental being. So far as Bergson is concerned, the intuition is working already in your vital.
I love that when you talk about, we're giving us the lectures in Life Divine, that he made this, Sri Aurobindo made this great distinction.
Yes.
He even refined it much further.
Much more than Bergson had ever done, and that Dr. Maitra has referred to his essay in his meeting of East and West in Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. There one essay is Bergson and Sri Aurobindo, and you will find the distinction there. Dr. Maitra is a very, very fine student of philosophy and is a very close student, and he has beautifully put the distinction between Bergson's intuition and Sri Aurobindo's intuition. It is there in the book. If you have time, you go through it. It is a fine study. He has compared him to Socrates, to Plato, to all the philosophers of the past and some of the present, and shown how Sri Aurobindo embodies all that they have contributed of a permanent importance to man's progress in thought. And he has carried the thought forward, so to say. He has shown that it is inclusive of worlds, the contribution that has been in the past, all of it. As Spiegelberg also admitted that I never saw such a breadth in a philosopher, and that is true. No one ever before had such a breadth of vision. That is true. It goes from right in conscience of matter to something quite beyond, attained the level of consciousness, and covers everything with a rationality and tries to explain the whole working of cosmos. It's a wide field. If you take any philosopher, you will find that his field is restricted compared to his field. It's a very wide field.
But of course, he plays the whole octave.
Yes.
He plays from the space.
Oh, yes. From inconscience to the divine. So there's nothing left in between. Today we got some books. Illumination of consciousness.
Now, where did, according to Sri Aurobindo,
Yes.
what level did he reach?
Nirvana. It is the you can say, a consciousness in which the being is not active, an inactive consciousness, and yet an infinity. He has described it very finely in a song, in a sonnet called the Nirvana. Why didn't you get at that song? Nirvana. I'll give you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
It was his first experience. Sri Aurobindo opened with that experience. His spiritual life began with Nirvana. Yes. And he has written a sonnet after 20 years. After 20 years of his, yogic life, he wrote a sonnet on Nirvana, which is very fine. I'll get you tomorrow. It is, I think, in my book of Savitri. I have compared a passage and put it there. All my poems are gone in advance to San Francisco, but I have in text of the Savitri, I have got quotation of this Nirvana in one page. I will show you tomorrow. You will get the whole sonnet of Nirvana. What it is, you will exactly know that it is a state in which you can say mind does not exist, the heart does not exist, the life does not exist, but something permanent exists. And then whether the world exists or not, well, you can say perhaps the world doesn't exist or perhaps the world exists. But the permanent is the most important, impression left on your mind. Something permanent, that's all.
And how is it then that the dream to mankind gave to mankind this great message that he gave to mankind this tremendous spiritual impulse which has not faded yet?
No.
From civilization,
Yes.
from all countries.
Yes.
It's
No.
affected.
Yes.
It's still very powerful.
Well, he gave the message on the strength of his experience first. Only unfortunate point is that he never described his experience. Sri Aurobindo has described Buddha's experience much better than Buddha himself. But Buddha didn't describe. Whenever he was asked, he said that, well, you don't try with the mind to understand, like something like that. 3 times, 4 times he was asked, and 4 times he evaded this question. You can study Buddhism in first hand and you will see that that is the position which is correct. Even Professor Beime, this Archie, has to admit that when in that book which he recently wrote on Buddha's life, you see, that he never described the illumination which he got. He said, yes, I got into a condition, well, I can't describe it. And he gave, on that basis of that truth, that there is a truth, he gave a message that you can't reach the truth except by rejecting your desires. This one great truth he gave, that you have to reject your desires if you want to reach that truth. This is the message he gave. And in exercising your mind, what you have to do is not to insult your intelligence, but use your mind when you are pursuing the truth. Mind has a place in the pursuit of truth. And so follow your intellect. Don't neglect your intellect. There's a true great messages he gave us: control of the desire, use of intellect in perception or following of the truth, and well, the other thing, eightfold path that followed as a corollary. That would lead you to the permanent. You will reach the permanent if you follow that eightfold path: right action, right will, right profession, and so on. You see, Ashtanga Marga it is called. You see, eightfold path. If you follow, you will come to this permanent ultimately. That's what he gave, and I think that gave a great impulse, particularly because he was a powerful personality. It is a power of personality.
Yeah, and he also stated, I don't know what to do, but according to what little I read about him, he gave the exact expression of each tenet of his faith.
Yes.
He defined.
Yes, he was a keen mind, he was a keen intellect. I get Nirvana tomorrow. I'll get the Nirvana. Well, the Indian conception is that there is a rebirth. Rebirth is there subsequent to withdrawal from the body. Body dies. The man does not die. Man is the soul of man.
How long is it before a rebirth, Purani? How long before is this?
No, not quite immediate, except in some cases We had talked about it with Sri Aurobindo, and he said that very rarely when there is no experience to assimilate, it might be very soon. If there is no material for assimilation for the soul, it might be very soon. But otherwise, generally man has some experience that he had in life which he has to assimilate. And it takes some time, but it's not human time. You see, you must not confound this with our time. That time and this time perhaps sometimes correspond or sometimes don't.
And Purani, rebirth doesn't always mean rebirth on the earth planet, does it? I mean,
Hmm?
another rebirth, the idea of reincarnation, wouldn't always mean that a person would reincarnate in a physical body, would it? I mean, now, supposing that the lessons that one could learn on this, at this earth plane had been learned, one wouldn't necessarily be reborn here on this earth plane, would they?
Well, the idea is that if physical perfection or assumption of material body is the condition for evolution, then it obtains here only so far as we know. So far as we know.
So we have to come back here.
And because the conditions are here, the return would be only here. Unless one withdraws from manifestation altogether, which is a different thing.
So, one like Sri Aurobindo, he won't be born back.
No, he is not, because there is no compulsion for rebirth. I mean, no necessity for rebirth. Rebirth is necessitated in order to reach the ultimate reality. If one has not reached the ultimate reality, then the missionary of rebirth is necessary to make him go forward till he reaches the divine. You see, if one has reached the divine, then assumption of birth or rejection of it, well, is in a sense voluntary.
Then you have to keep coming back
Yes.
so
Yes.
each one will become Sri Aurobindo.
Huh?
You have to keep coming back so each one will become similar to one like Sri Aurobindo.
No, everyone has to become himself.
I know, but
Huh.
we have to reach that.
Yes, that's right.
Thing.
Yes.
I mean, similar to that.
Yes, reach the divine. Let us put it in impersonally, that one has to reach the divine consciousness and know the divine will and fulfill it. But afterwards, whether there is rebirth or not will be decided afterwards. There is no hurry about it.
Isn't there some evaluation of the guy? Isn't there some evaluation of the life you live? Don't you see it from another level of consciousness that there's some greater being in yourself or your psychic self show you your whole lifespan, what you have done?
Yes.
That
is what takes time. After body is left and when the soul retires, the soul it is who assimilates, digests, we call it masticates, like a cow that chewing the cud, chewing the cud, sitting and then chewing the cud. Like that, the psychic being it is that sits and chews the cud. Yeah, you see? Yes. The whole of life, it assimilates all the experience, assimilates the experience and projects forward afterwards. So, psychic being has nobody else to show, it sees itself. What gains and losses it had in life and what is ultimately assimilated in the stature, so to say, in the making. And then what part remains to be developed, it gathers future material for progress in such a way that what are lacking will be added to it in the next birth. You see? The selection is made on the basis of assimilation of the past.
And then that presupposes a great intelligence.
It is a part of the divine. Psychic being is not a small thing. Psychic being is a portion of the divine in oneself. You see, it is a representative of the supramental. Representative of the divine himself. That is why it is able to gather materials, you see. Yeah.
Well, and on yoga too, the very planes and parts of the
Yes.
body, Sri Aurobindo goes into this for pages.
Well, we have done that here.
Yes, we did it too.
We did it here for 15 days. Huh? No, that takes time. Try to assimilate, that takes time. We have done it
Places
in...
referred to as your It's in there, it's very complete.
We have taken parts and planes of the being here itself. Whole psychology, you see, we began with psychology, modern psychology, then the parts and planes of the being, difficulties of yoga, and so on like that. And then we ended by quotation from the book itself. The last, the exposition that I gave were only quotations from Sri Aurobindo's writing only, on yoga. From on yoga, I made a selection. The 2 volumes. What was pertinent? You see, it is so big a field that you can't cover. So what was most important and bearing on practical practice, I had taken out. It could serve very well as a first understanding and also guide to practice.
Aren't people like Aurobindo reincarnated, though? I mean, don't they come down in other?
No, there is no compulsion on them. They may come down if they want. Yes, they come down with necessity. You see, in India there is a tradition that there are 3 or 4 types of souls. You see, those who are bound in nature, means attached and egoistic and trying to remain in nature part. There are others who are nitya siddha, means always perfect. They come down here, accept imperfection, and have a little training, and immediately, very quickly, they get to their state which is there. You see, there are others who are called nitya mukta, always free and liberated, and there are others who are of the divine type. They can come down the ladder or go up the ladder as they wish. It means as the divine wishes. You see, so they can take birth or not take birth like that. Prakoti, it is called. The soul belonging to the type of the divine. Well, for them, birth is not a bondage and death is not a release. Whatever is required, they can do. This fear of birth or the need of liberation is good for when one is bound in the circle of nature, you see. Otherwise, it has not much great meaning after all. Birth need not be a bondage. Birth may be only assumption of, conditions for manifestation only. You assume conditions in which the eternal can manifest itself. That's all. Then birth is an occasion or an opportunity. Birth can become an opportunity. People fear it because, it will bring all the troubles and so on. But it's not a correct way of doing every time. Birth may be an opportunity.
You wrap that life to animals or reincarnate, come back.
Well, this idea is that they gradually grow into the human consciousness. The evolutionary line would push them into humanity. And yes, but it is partly seen how it would be when you see domesticated animals. That there is always a rapport, a connection possible to establish between animal consciousness, which has no language and no mind, and man, you see. And a very live connection, very, very living contact is possible. And then an action and reaction. Domesticated animals quite different from other animals of their own species. They become very much humanized.
Honey, I've heard it said that, the question has come up, was reincarnation ever referred to in the Bible? And
I don't know.
I heard that you don't think that
I don't know, because I have not carefully studied the Bible.
It was referred to,
it was Elijah, wasn't it? I mean,
I don't remember anymore, but that question came up and I got that answer and somebody threw
well,
it
wasn't
place.
that, it seems to me that Hara gave us an answer, or maybe I have this mixed up with something else, but reincarnation at the time, during the time of Jesus, was as common and ordinary as we think of gravity today, that was something you didn't talk about, it was something that was accepted. Would this be an answer?
Maybe that it was, but the subsequent organization of religion, I don't know what attitude they have taken. I have no idea.
They don't mention it because they don't believe it in
Yes, that's
in
it.
there. Gave 2 or 3 places. I might have them in a notebook or a Bible someplace. Before I went to business, I flew, I did know
Questions of the surface mind, they are not questions which affect our work. I mean, the work of progressing towards light or trying to set ourselves on the path. That is important.
Question, there are people that are thrown to you though.
Huh?
There are questions that are thrown,
Oh, yes.
you know.
In Africa, 2 or 3, I think what they call ministers, Episcopal people, I think. Those who put on collar, I don't know which side. Methodist? Huh? Is it Methodist? I don't know. To put on a collar which is opposite, just upside down like that.
Well, that's a clerical collar, that's worn by several.
Several sects, I see. Well, whatever it is, they got to collar like that. Like that collar we are behind. Anyway, they attended a meeting at Broken Hill in Rhodesia, and
Probably Church of England.
yes, they were England, from England. And then they were sitting at the end of the meeting. I was addressing an almost exclusively European audience, where a few Indians were there also, but mainly Europeans. And I spoke some general about present day and culture and necessity of higher values, or I don't know what I spoke. So they thought that I'll be making out a case for proselyting Hinduism and Veda and Upanishad and Gita and something that believe in God, our God is great and your God is small or something. I don't know what they expected out of me. But that sort of thing never came out. So they were a little disappointed, poor fellows, those priest ministers sitting there, you see. They thought that he will make some claim of, I didn't speak anything. I spoke about reason and intellect and man's future, and he's seeking for some truth and how to get at the truth. That's what we were talking. So the case was all right, and they were very happy that it was a convincing way of putting things, at least. At the end of it, a lady who had flown from England got up and asked that, what about Buddhism or something, and I answered her. Then we brought a meeting was finished, 1.25 hours or something, and we were dispersing. Then the Indians who were there were asking those ministers, because last 10 minutes I invited questions, you see. I told them that if anybody has some question, we'll try to discuss. So the Indians asked, why don't you put some questions? So we said, no, we have no questions to ask. But the lady had asked me when I talked about Buddhism, do you believe in India in rebirth? I said, yes, all Indians believe in rebirth. So the ministers at last, you see, when the meeting was breaking up and they came to the table and the Indians asked, you ask, why are you afraid of him? He will answer you. So they at last mustered up courage and said that, how can there be rebirth? Well, I said, that is not a question of how can there be rebirth. The question is, well, if you don't want to believe, there is no force. You did not believe in rebirth. It's all right. Then he said that, no, but if there is rebirth, then I must remember my rebirth. I said, that is not the right argument. That I can tell you. I must remember my rebirth, past birth. So I said, that is not the right argument. If you don't like, don't believe. That's all right. But if you say, because I don't remember my past, that is no proof. Then he said that, no, but I must know. I said, how can you? Do you remember what you took in the morning breakfast only 20 days back? Only 20 days ago, what did you take in the morning? Can you tell me? And you did it with this body, you ate with this body. Now that body you have left somewhere and then you say that you will remember. How can you remember? Oh, then he said, yes. But in history, is there a case where the rebirth is proved? I said, look, now who is to give you the proof? If a proof is produced, I don't believe in it then. But I can give you instead of one man who is very well known in the world. Millions of people follow him. And he believed in rebirth. His name is Gautam Buddha. And if you say that he has recounted 600 of his births, past births. Jatak stories. You see, Jatak Katha is recounting of Buddha's past births in story form. That he was once a Hansa, he was once a swan, once he was a lion, and so on. All the stories about past he has said. Whether they are right or wrong, I don't claim to judge. I only say that Gautam Buddha, a man of that stature, claims to remember his 600 past births. Therefore, past births were known to somebody who is not a religious man because he doesn't believe in a God. But past birth he believes in. So then at the end, he was very much disappointed.
Well, it seems very consistent because how painfully few people are out who need fulfillment in this one span between birth and death. So it seems consistent that, we need more time.
It's an ordinary event of life. And in some people's death, there is an essence of life. Now, I've noticed this many times in other people. There's just simply an animal existence. They stop breathing. Now, I don't mean to say we're all unconscious before we die, unless we die so suddenly. We are unconscious. Nature is very kind. She just feels our senses over and we read our last. But several days or in 24 hours before the death of certain types of people, there's an aura of light.
Yeah. That is true because the vital being is preparing to leave the body. The vital being prepares to leave the body, then the body falls, he dies. And the vital being is very, very prominent in case of developed persons. I mean, it comes to the front and withdraws, all the current of life from the body.
About those people. They are conscious that they are going.
Yes.
They want to go. And there is sweetness even after death.
Yes. Yes.
There's no sting about that. There's sadness. The people that are here, but no sadness for them.
Yes, that's true. Because when one consciously leaves the body, then the atmosphere in which he lives is very peaceful. And it's the best condition for departure. Best condition to have peace, perfect peace.
Does it matter how the body is handled after death? There's a group here I heard of recently that believe that the body should be left completely alone for 3 days and put on cold storage, something so the soul can will not be disturbed and can make its adjustments.
Not much. It's all right. The vital being, when it leaves the body, it has some connection for some time, there is no doubt, with the physical atmosphere. But the keeping of the physical body has very little to do with it. And to call back the spirit to the body is not necessary either. Once it has taken up a definite step of departing from it, the best is to have goodwill and wish, as you say, good journey. That's all.
Maybe the body should not be embalmed.
No, beliefs like that. They are nothing to do with the inner growth of the man who has left the body. Once the body is left, well, it's left. That's all. It is very much attached persons who come back to the body in order to renew their connection with the earth and so on. But those who are not attached, they don't care. And it's better that they should not be attached in their own interest. To cut the connection and ask them to take the other way.